Let's talk about anti-Semitism. I've talked about right-wing and left-wing anti-Semitism before, and many of us on the left are quick to admit that anti-Semitism on the right is a major problem, and it is a major problem, and I've talked about it before, right? Right-wing anti-Semitism from white nationalists, the patriot and militia type movements, many sources of right-wing anti-Semitism. But we're also seeing left-wing anti-Semitism, and it's coming from different places. It's sometimes coming on college campuses. It's sometimes from so-called African-American rights groups that we've covered in the past, anti-Semitic statements and I guess statements is what I would really call it, proclamations of sorts. And the causes of left-wing anti-Semitism are different than the causes on the right. And this isn't a comprehensive list, but left-wing anti-Semitism sometimes stems from antipathy towards Israeli foreign or domestic policy. It can stem from the perception that despite being one of the most persecuted groups in human history, Jews are now seen by some as a privileged group in some countries, and sometimes as a group undeserving of the so-called privilege that they're perceived to have. Sometimes it's related to straight-up conspiracy theories of control. Sometimes it's merely the feeling that in order to be for Palestinian rights, you have to be more vocally against Jews at large. There's many reasons that I haven't mentioned, and it's also combinations of the reasons that I have. In any case, college campuses are quickly becoming an epicenter of left-wing anti-Semitism, and there have been some horrible incidents over the last week or so. Recently, there was an event called the Chicago Dyke March on Saturday. It's an LGBT rights event. And 3 people carrying Jewish pride flags, in other words, it's a rainbow LGBTQ flag with a Star of David in the middle, basically saying, hey, the Jewish community supports LGBTQ rights. They were asked to leave the march because they, quote, repeatedly expressed support for Zionism, which is a, by and large, pretty meaningless phrase. And one member of the Dyke March collective said that those people carrying the rainbow flags with the Star of David in the middle were told to leave because people were feeling unsafe as a result of the flags, adding that the march was an anti-Zionist, pro-Palestinian march, according to the Windy City Times. And one of those people who was kicked out of the march said she was approached multiple times about her flag. This is Laurel Grauer, who said they were telling me to leave because my flag was a trigger to people that they found offensive. A member of the Dyke March collective spoke to the Chicagoist on Sunday and insisted, oh no, our organization isn't anti-Semitic, but we don't want to be associated with anything that could be interpreted as pro-Israel. And the Dyke March organizers subsequently released a statement explaining that the decision to remove Jewish marchers was, quote, made after they repeatedly expressed support for Zionism during conversations with Dyke March collective members. What was one of those expressions of Zionism? Well, Laurel Grauer said that she believes in a 2-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and apparently that was just too much. Listen, infighting is a destructive force in social movements, and the LGBTQ movement, as has been exposed by a number of good investigative pieces, is having an issue with anti-Semitic elements, and it's particularly self-destructive and disturbing to see groups fighting for minority rights often reject the support of Jews. In the Black community, which in some places is directly at odds with Jews, for example, near where I used to live in Brooklyn, in South Williamsburg, Brooklyn, in New York City, there is pretty significant tension between the Hasidic and Black communities there. And it's extra upsetting to me to see that, given the very long history in the United States of Jews being there, fighting for minority rights, LGBTQ rights, African-American rights, Mississippi Burning, right? Many people don't know this. Mississippi Burning, the movie based on the 1964 murders of 3 civil rights workers during the civil rights movement. 2 of the 3 people killed there were Jews. And historically, Jewish groups have been at the forefront of fighting for LGBT rights, groups like the Anti-Defamation League. This is so toxic and so destructive. And at the core, whatever your feelings are, Pat, movements that start this infighting end up mostly hurting themselves.
It really is too bad that this is going on the left. If you look at the other side, Republicans have had a big issue with racism ever since Lyndon Johnson signed the South away with the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act.
Sure.
Now, of course, that's not indicative of every Republican, and it's small in numbers, but still very significant.
Sure.
And that's why I think, conservatives do have a responsibility to call their fellow racist conservatives out on that.
As do we.
And if this continues to grow, we'll have that same responsibility when it comes to anti-Semitism on the left.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And this is just, I mean, what are we gaining? What did the LGBTQ rights/pride movement gain by kicking someone out for having a flag that indicated the Jewish community supports LGBTQ rights and believed in a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Explain to me how the march was better off, okay?